What are some famous quotes people misuse by not using the full quote? Machiavelli, it is better to be feared than loved, asterisk if you cannot be both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. Michaels, I want people to love how much they fear me. Money is the root of all evil. The actual verse reads, asterisk, the love of asterisk money is a root of all sorts of evil. Greed is for amateurs. Greed is, now is the winter of our discontent. Actual quote, now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York. The now modifies made, not is. Richard III is describing a good thing. That seasons are changing for him and things are looking up. Basically the complete opposite of what you get by stopping halfway through the quote. Excellent choice. The misinterpretation is likely assisted by the fact that Richard III, the villain of the play, is saying this with bitter irony, since he, the fictional villain, with no comment about the maligned historical person, wants to be king and will kill anyone, York or Lancaster, to get there. The race is not to the swift. The full quote is, the race is not to the swift, not the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. The point isn't so much that persistence is sometimes enough to overcome skill, but rather that sometimes everyone is unlucky. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I'd rather be lucky than good any day. As I always say, my country, right or wrong. People use it to justify blind patriotism and ignoring the bad things that their country does, but forget the rest of the quote. If right, to be kept right, and if wrong, to be set right. The quote my mind always jumps to with that phrase is this one. Patriotism is a word, and one that generally comes to mean either my country, right or wrong, which is infamous, or my country is always right, which is imbecile. History repeats itself, first as tragedy, then as farce. People often forget the second part. Hey, it's still true. Yeah, we're in the farce part now. Information wants to be free. Information also wants to be expensive. That tension will not go away. The mountains are calling and amp. I must go and amp. I will work on while I can, studying incessantly. John Muir, father of our national park system. He wasn't just some dude who liked fucking around in the mountains. He was a scientist. Living in Montana, I see the shortened version of this all the time. Thank you for enlightenment. To pull yourself up by your bootstraps was initially meant to imply doing the impossible. I always heard, like standing in a bucket and pulling on the handle. But that actually works in Skyrim. Misuse might as well be that person who points this quote out. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it burned in one. The classic spin-on, it takes years to build trust but only a moment to destroy it. Classic, you mean the original. God remains dead. And we have killed him, monsieur. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? Nietzsche. The full quote is not nearly as cut and dry as the first sentence. Much more thoughtful than celebratory. And GT. The full quote is not nearly as cut and dry as the first sentence, as is the case with pretty much everything Nietzsche said. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. The full quote. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I am kind to everyone. But when someone is unkind to me, weak is not what you are going to remember about me. Al Capone. Not necessarily misused. But I think the full quote is so much more. Edit. My first goal. Thanks, stranger. Wow, so much more power and depth in the full quote. Great minds think alike, but fools rarely differ. Edit. Thank you, Mike. Me. I like this one a lot. Question everything. If everyone is thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking. Pat it. Why then the world's mine oyster, which with sword I will open. Is it about the carelessness of conquest there? Sorry, I have a really hard time with older English. IIRC. The original context of that quote is from someone being denied when he requested money. So he decided he would use his sword to go take what he believed to be rightfully his. In this sense, it does have a much more violent connotation than just how most people use the phrase now. I wouldn't say it is so much about conquest, but more about using what you have to take what you want. In this context, a sword necessary edit, it's from a play, The Merry Wives of Windsor, if you would like to go read the full play. As happy as a clam. Only, I always wondered WTF anyone thought a clam was happy. God is, and we have killed him, monsieur. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? Nietzsche, and GT, God is dead, and we have killed him, monsieur. The whole parable is a quick read and well worth reading. Anamp. #X200B. Asterisk the madman asterisk have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace, and cried incessantly, I seek God. I seek, as many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then. He provoked much laughter. Has he got lost? Asked. Did he lose his way like a child? Asked. Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrate? Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced him with his eyes. Whither is, he cried, I will tell you, we have killed him, you and I, all of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continuous backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying, as through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods, too, decompose. God remains dead. And we have killed him, monsieur. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here the madman fell silent and looked again at his listeners, and they, too, were silent and stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went out. I have come too early, he said then, my time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering, it has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time. The light of the stars requires time. Deeds, though done, still require time to be seen and heard. This deed is still more distant from them than most distant stars, asterisk, and yet they have done it themselves, asterisk. It has been related further that on the same day the madman forced his way into several churches, and there struck up his Requiem aeternam Deo. Led out and called to account. He is said always to have replied nothing but, what after all are these churches now if they are not the tombs and sepulchres of God? Anamp. #X200B. Friedrich Nietzsche. Not sure if it's Misuse, but everybody remembers Lord Acton's, power tends to corrupt an absolute. Power corrupts absolutely. But few remember that the quote continues, "Great men are almost always bad men even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you superadd the tendency or certainty of corruption by authority. No man can reign innocently." People refer to bad apples, meaning some group is fine. There's just a couple of bad people in it that aren't representative of the whole. That's the exact opposite meaning of the full quote. A few bad apples spoil the bunch. A few bad apples spoil the barrel. They were stored in barrels. And if one rots, the gases released cause accelerated decomposition of the others. Ethylene. Not something I would have expected to be a hormone, but yup. Where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. Thomas, I think you still get the point without the second half. It doesn't change the meaning to leave it off. Well, the first word, where, is left out too, and that makes a huge difference. Ignorance is bliss on its own implies it's always better to be ignorant. The where changes the meaning to say in the cases when ignorance is bliss, which might be few cases. That changes the meaning completely.